In Afghanistan, security forces have arrested a group of people in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate President Hamid Karzai.
Larry Korb is a senior fellow at the Centre for American Progress, and he joins us now from Washington for analysis on that foiled plot. Larry Korb, good to talk to you. Good morning.
Nice to be with you.
Or indeed, good evening, your time, I should say. Always terribly confusing that. First of all, just a first impression on this so-called foiled assassination plot. Would you have any doubt that it was what the Afghanistan government says it was, an attempt to assassinate Hamid Karzai?
Well, given what's happened to his brother, Rabini, and other people, I would probably say no. I think that the Taliban basically has come up with new tactics. They don't want to fight us on the battlefield in places like Helmand province, but what they want to do is provoke fear among the Afghan people and their leaders.
Yes, indeed, that does seem to be that shift in strategy, doesn't it? We heard just before about the Australian Defence Minister being in Brussels talking about exactly this and the danger of hollowing out the army. Although, as you say, the Taliban's not interested in taking on the army directly anymore. They have this campaign of fear and intimidation going on.
Well, that's right. I mean, when you go to war, the enemy obviously is going to adjust to your strengths. So the United States and Australia have great conventional forces, great special forces, so they don't want to take them on, but what they can do is basically create such fear among the Afghan leadership that they'd be willing to accede to some of their demands. And in the final analysis, no matter how good our forces fight, at some point the Afghans are going to have to take charge of their own security. And if you've got elements within the government and their own security forces who turn on their leaders, there's not much we can do.
No, well, that's the real question we're left with. How do we, as allies fighting in that country, or how do the people of Afghanistan actually then take on the Taliban and the Haqqani network in the way that they've decided to intimidate the people of Afghanistan? What's the strategy that should be put in place here?
Well, I think basically, we have the right strategy. I mean, we're training the Afghan security forces. We'll be drawing down, the agreement is, to take the bulk of the troops out by 2014, which will have meant, we will have been there for 13 years. And what we have to recognize that we're going to have to leave at some point, and if the Afghans are not ready to step up, there's not much we can do. But our interests mainly are to prevent the al-Qaeda from getting a home again in Afghanistan, and that country destabilizing the region. If we can prevent that, I think we will have accomplished our objectives. And really, if in fact they don't have the leadership that we would like, they have different leadership, that doesn't impact on our strategic interests.
But following logically what you say, it doesn't seem that by the time America and even Australia pulls out of Afghanistan, and we've said we're actually going to be there for a lot longer, that the Taliban and the Haqqani network, they will still have a presence there, and it's still likely that they could intimidate that country back into a position where they hold sway and they hold power. That's quite a possible outcome, isn't it?
Well, I think it's less probable than it was. When I was in Afghanistan as part of a task force that Lakhdar Brahimi, the person who did the Bonn conference, put together, and we spoke to the Taliban people. Basically, their point is they know that by bringing al-Qaeda back, they would be targets of attacks by the United States and its allies. They're not going to do that again. I think their main goal is to ensure that the Afghan regime is governed in according with some of the principles that that they see. And the real event is going to be 2014. There's going to be another election. Karzai shouldn't run again. If he doesn't, will they rally around another leader that can get the support of the people?
And then there's the Pakistan question. And of course, we saw that interesting meeting between Hamid Karzai and the Prime Minister of India in the last 24 hours, where the P word, the Pakistan word, was very, very carefully avoided and stepped around. But this is the dangerous presence on one particular border, isn't it?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, in the final analysis, we're not going to lose, but we can't win in the traditional sense. So I think you're going to have negotiations. In fact, the United States is already negotiating with the Haqqani network. Pakistan is going to have to be part of the negotiations, because we, and I'll speak for the United States, after the Pakistanis helped us get rid of the Soviets in Afghanistan, we walked away. So they want to hedge their bets. They're obsessed with India, and I don't think that Karzai going to India is really going to help things in the long term. But yes, they're going to have to be part of it. There's going to have to be some sort of reconciliation process that goes on. And I think as long as it doesn't become a haven for Al Qaeda or destabilize the region, the interests of Australia and the United States will be protected. What kind of government they will have? It's interesting. Australia and the United States fought together, and I was part of it in Vietnam. Well, look at Vietnam. We left, and right now we're working with them to prevent the Chinese from expanding.
The argument in that, according to some, is that we shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Well, I think we had to go to Afghanistan. But remember, the interesting thing is, we told the Taliban, if you turn over Al Qaeda, we'll leave you alone. We did not want to go in there and re-engineer that society. There's a reason it's called the graveyard of the empires. But, having done that, then, gone in, we had to try and make the best of a bad deal. But I think what we should have been doing is negotiating earlier. But having said that, as long as we start negotiating now, because it's not, as Secretary Panetta was talking about, I mean, our allies from Europe, NATO, they're going to be gone by 2014. In fact, the Canadians, for example, are already leaving, and the Dutch. So I think we need to start negotiating as quick as we can while we have the maximum advantage.
Indeed, but just quickly and finally, Larry Korb, a negotiation only works when one side has something to give the other side that they actually want. What is it that Australia and America could negotiate with the Haqqani network and the Taliban that they're going to want that we're prepared to give?
Well, I think what we need, so even though we'll be, pretty well down in 2014, they want us to leave. And I think that's the thing. As long as we're there, it's going to bother them because they see us as despoiling their society and being against what they want to do. So I think that's the card we have. Say, yes, we'll draw down to 2014, but we'll stay around. We'll make sure we'll prevent you from accomplishing your objectives. And that's the problem. It's not that we can't, they can't win and we can't win. And I think that's what we both have to recognize.
Larry Korb, really good to talk to you today. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me.